The alien delegation stepped cautiously onto the Thunderchild's hangar deck. Ambassador Do-hyun Choi led the Galactic Council representatives, his four arms twitching nervously as Captain Lee approached with her senior staff. "Welcome aboard the HMS Thunderchild," said Captain Sun-Mi Lee of the Earth Defense Force. Her uniform was crisp and her posture perfect, projecting confidence and authority. Ambassador Choi bowed slightly. "We were unaware humans had achieved such technological advancement. Our records indicated your species was still confined to your solar system." Captain Lee smiled. "We've been exploring for nearly 50 years, Ambassador. We developed our own FTL drive after detecting your transmissions decades ago." The delegation exchanged alarmed glances. The tallest alien, with blue scales and breathing apparatus, whispered something to Ambassador Choi, who nodded gravely. "Captain Lee, this is most unexpected," Choi said. "The Council carefully monitors technological advancement of pre-contact species. Your independent development creates complications." Lieutenant Jun-Ho Park, the ship's tactical officer, stiffened beside Captain Lee. He had warned her about this possibility. The alien races often reacted poorly to technological surprises. "Unsure we can work through any complications," Captain Lee replied smoothly. "Please, follow me to our conference room. Refreshments have been prepared." As they walked through the gleaming corridors of the Thunderchild, the aliens couldn't hide their surprise. One of them, a small purple-skinned female named Vex, kept touching the walls and muttering into a recording device. "Is something wrong?" asked Lieutenant Min Park, the ship's engineer. "Your whole composition," Vex said. "It's impossibly dense. Our scans couldn't penetrate it." Min smiled politely. Human ingenuity. The conference room was large, with a view of the stars through a transparent aluminum viewport. The alien delegation seemed surprised again by the display of advanced materials science. Diplomat Jin Woo-Kang of the Council pressed for answers once they were seated. "How many ships of this class does humanity possess? How many worlds have you colonized without notifying the Council?" "We operate independently," replied Admiral Yun-Hee Ba, who had joined via hologram from Earth Command. Her image stood tall at the head of the table, adding to the tension. "Our settlements are our business. We didn't realize we needed permission." Ambassador Choi's upper arms crossed defensively while his lower arms rested on the table. "The Council doesn't grant permission, Admiral. We coordinate resources and territories to prevent conflicts. Your unregistered expansion threatens regional stability." Captain Lee noticed the alien's body language growing increasingly hostile. "Perhaps we should back up," she suggested. "We're here to establish friendly relations, not argue over protocol." The blue-scaled alien spoke for the first time, his translator making his voice sound flat and mechanical. "Your ships have been detected near Coalition space. The Coalition is not part of the Council. They are aggressive and territorial." "We've had some encounters," Captain Lee admitted. "Nothing serious." "Yet," hissed Vex, "the Coalition doesn't tolerate encroachment." Admiral Ba's hologram flickered slightly as she leaned forward. "Are you suggesting the Coalition would attack our settlements?" "It is not merely possible, it is probable," Ambassador Choi said. "Which is why your secrecy is so concerning. We could have provided guidance, warnings about regional powers." Lieutenant Jun-Ho Park spoke up. "With respect, Ambassador, we've managed fine without Council guidance. Our intelligence on the Coalition is comprehensive." The meeting grew increasingly tense as cultural misunderstandings mounted. The aliens viewed humanity's secrecy as threatening, while the humans saw the Council's questions as presumptuous. "Let me be direct," said the blue-scaled alien. "The Council requires a full accounting of human military capabilities and colony locations." Captain Lee's smile disappeared. "That won't be happening, sir." A chime sounded, and Lieutenant Jun-Ho Park glanced at his tablet. His face paled. "Captain, we're detecting multiple ships dropping out of FTL. Coalition signatures." The room fell silent. "You were followed," Captain Lee accused, staring hard at Ambassador Choi. "Impossible," Choi replied, but his forearms were now trembling visibly. We took precautions. Admiral Baz's hologram showed her turning to speak to someone off-screen before returning her attention to the conference room. Captain Lee, 6 coalition warships have surrounded the Thunderchild. They're broadcasting demands for your surrender. Ambassador Choi stood up quickly. This is a diplomatic mission. The Council has treaties with the coalition. It appears they don't care, Captain Lee said coldly. She tapped her communicator. Battle stations. Shields up. The lights dimmed and changed to a red hue as alarms sounded throughout the ship. What are you doing? Cried Vex. You can't fight 6 coalition ships. Captain Lee exchanged a look with Lieutenant Junho. You really don't know anything about humans, do you? Admiral Baz's hologram grew larger. Captain Lee, the rest of Battle Group 7 is moving to your position. Hold them off for 10 minutes. We can do that, Captain Lee said with a confidence that startled the alien delegation. Ambassador Choi's forearms were gesturing wildly now. This is madness. You must surrender and let us negotiate. Captain Lee ignored him, addressing her tactical officer instead. Lieutenant Junho, escort our guests to the secure observation lounge. They should see this. As they were led away, Ambassador Choi turned back to Captain Lee. What are you planning? Captain Lee's smile returned, but it was different now, cold and predatory. They expected peace talks, Ambassador. Now they'll learn what happens when you threaten humans. The first shots from the coalition ships struck the Thunderchild's shields, making the ship shudder slightly. But the humans didn't look worried. They looked ready. The peace talks were over. The battle was about to begin. Captain Sung Lee sat in the darkness of his stealth corvette, the HSS Shadow. The ship's systems ran silent, its special coating absorbing enemy scans. Through his viewport, he watched the massive coalition flagship, the Star Sovereign, floating against the backdrop of stars. His fingers tapped lightly on the console as he monitored the sensor readings. There it is, he whispered to himself as the readings changed. Just as we predicted. The coalition ship's energy signature shifted as they adjusted their shield configuration. They were preparing to receive what they thought was a diplomatic shuttle. Captain Lee opened a secure channel to the Dauntless. Admiral Park, this is Captain Lee. They've lowered peripheral shields for the diplomatic shuttle approach. Classic mistake. On the bridge of the HSS Dauntless, Admiral Jun Park stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His face showed no emotion as he received the report. Around him, the bridge crew worked in focused silence, each person knowing their role in what would happen next. Understood, Captain, Admiral Park said calmly. He turned to Communications Officer Jae-hun, who sat ready at his station. Send the signal. Authorization code. Thunder before lightning. Jae-hun's fingers moved swiftly across his console. Sending now, sir. The coded message traveled instantly through quantum channels to every ship in the human fleet. 300 warships, hidden in various positions throughout the sector, received the signal simultaneously. On the weapons deck of the HSS Relentless, Weapons Officer Min Jae looked up from her console as the authorization code appeared on her screen. Her hand hovered over the targeting system for just a moment before she engaged it. Target lock confirmed, she reported to her captain. Weapons hot. Similar scenes played out across the human fleet. Targeting systems engage. Weapons powered up. All in complete silence, with no detectable energy signatures that would alert the coalition. Meanwhile, in the neutral station's conference room, the peace talks continued. The room was designed to project an atmosphere of calm and cooperation, with soft lighting and comfortable seating. Coalition representatives sat on one side of the large table, their varied anatomies accommodated by specially designed chairs. The human delegation sat opposite them. Chief Negotiator Yun Cho deliberately flipped through the pages of the coalition's proposal with slow, methodical movements. Her face showed confusion that didn't reach her eyes. I'm confused about Section 3.7 of your proposal, she said, looking up at Ambassador Telk. The tall, insectoid alien's compound eyes flickered with impatience. Perhaps we could clarify. Her communicator beeped once, a single, soft tone that only she could hear through her earpiece. Yum's expression changed immediately. The false confusion vanished, replaced by a cold certainty. She closed the folder containing the peace proposal and stood up. Ambassador Telk's antennae twitched in surprise. "What's happening?" he demanded, rising from his seat. His 4 guards moved their hands toward concealed weapons. They expected peace talks. Yun replied simply, walking toward the exit. She didn't look back as she added, "You should have come honestly." The door slid shut behind her. In the corridor, she broke into a run toward the human shuttle bay. Ambassador Telk turned to his communication officer. "Contact the fleet immediately. Tell them." In the cold silence of space, 300 human warships opened fire in perfect synchronization. The first volley targeted communication arrays and sensor nodes. The coalition ships, caught with their defense grids reconfigured for shuttle docking rather than combat, couldn't send warnings or accurately assess the attack. On the Star Sovereign's bridge, alarms blared as systems failed across the ship. Captain Grell stumbled as the deck shuddered beneath him. "What's happening?" he shouted over the noise. "Multiple impacts." His tactical officer responded, frantically working at his station. "We've lost communications, long-range sensors, and defensive grid control." "How many ships?" Captain Grell demanded. The tactical officer looked up, his face pale. "Sir, hundreds. They're everywhere." The second wave of human weapons struck seconds later. These targeted engines and weapons systems with surgical precision. Specialized quantum torpedoes phased through the Coalition's standard shields, materializing inside the ship's hulls before detonating. On the HSS Dauntless, Admiral Park watched the tactical display as Coalition ships went dark one by one. Their weapons disabled before they could even fire a single shot. "Status report," he ordered. "Phase 1 complete, Admiral." His tactical officer responded. "All Coalition communication systems neutralized. Their fleet is isolated and unable to coordinate." Admiral Park nodded. "Begin Phase 2. Target their engines and weapon systems." In his stealth corvette, Captain Songbli allowed himself a small smile as he watched the Coalition flagship's lights flicker. Their mighty Star Sovereign, pride of their fleet, now drifted helplessly. "This is Captain Lee," he reported. "Flagship disabled. Moving to secondary targets." Across the sector, the human fleet executed their attack with ruthless efficiency. Ships that had hidden for months, gathering intelligence and waiting for this moment, now revealed themselves in a devastating surprise attack. In the shuttle racing away from the neutral station, Chief Negotiator Yun Cho watched through the viewport as flashes of light marked the Coalition fleet's destruction. Her face showed no joy, only grim satisfaction that deception had been met with justice. "They never understood us," she said softly to the pilot. "They thought our desire for peace meant weakness." The pilot nodded. "That's always been their mistake." Behind them, the Coalition's dreams of conquest died in silent explosions against the black of space. "Impossible," screamed the Coalition tactical officer, his 6-fingered hands trembling over his control panel. The view screen showed the human torpedoes passing through their shields as if they weren't even there. "The shields are at full power, but the weapons are just going through them." The bridge of the Coalition flagship Eternal Dominion shook violently as the first explosions tore through the lower decks. Emergency lights flashed, and the acrid smell of burning circuitry filled the air. Crew members of various alien species rushed to battle stations, their movements becoming increasingly frantic as more reports of damage came in. The tactical officer, a veteran of 3 galactic campaigns, had never seen anything like this. "These readings can't be right," he muttered, checking his instruments again. "These are quantum phase torpedoes. They're phasing in and out of normal space to bypass our shields." Supreme Commander Grath rose from his command chair. his tall, gray form imposing even as the ship shuddered around him. His species was known for their cool logic, but now his four eyes widened with unmistakable fear. "That technology is impossible for humans," he said, his voice tight. "We classify them as Tier 3. These weapons are Tier 6, at minimum." Another explosion rocked the ship. A support beam crashed down nearby, narrowly missing a junior officer. "Sir," called the communications officer, "the Relentless and the Subjugator are reporting critical failures. Their weapons are offline. The inevitable is gone, sir. Completely destroyed." Commander Grath moved to the tactical display, watching as the symbols representing his fleet blinked out one by one. 15 years of military service, and he had never seen a defeat this swift, this absolute. "How are they predicting our evasive patterns?" he demanded, slamming a fist onto the console. "We're executing randomized maneuvers, but they're intercepting us at every turn." The tactical officer looked up, his face ashen. "It's as if they know our movements before we make them." Across space, aboard the human command ship HSS Dauntless, Commander Su-min sat surrounded by holographic displays. Her eyes moved quickly between streams of data, her fingers occasionally adjusting parameters on her interface. Around her, a team of analysts worked in coordinated silence. "Pattern match confirmed," she announced. "They're using the Halverstein defensive protocol now." Just as predicted. For 15 years, Commander Su-min had dedicated her life to studying coalition battle tactics. She had analyzed every recorded engagement, every training exercise the humans had managed to observe. Her work had led to the development of predictive algorithms that could anticipate coalition maneuvers with 97% accuracy. "They're switching to their secondary protocols now," she noted calmly. "Right on schedule." Admiral Park nodded, standing behind her chair. "Well done, Commander. Your work is saving countless lives today." On the main bridge, Admiral Park returned to his command position. The holographic battle map showed the human fleet executing their attack with precision. Their formations appeared random to the untrained eye, but each movement was calculated, each position optimized. "Target their communication relays next," ordered Admiral Park. "Phase 2 begins now." Throughout the human fleet, ship captains acknowledged the new orders. The fleet shifted positions, moving into what appeared to be chaotic patterns. Ships accelerated and decelerated at unpredictable intervals, changing directions with impossible precision. On the coalition flagship, alarms blared as new attacks hit their communication arrays. Supreme Commander Grath watched helplessly as the tactical display showed his remaining ships losing contact with each other. "Their formations make no sense," said the navigation officer, staring at the sensor readings in confusion. "It's like they're dancing." "Dancing?" Commander Grath snapped. "Yes, sir. Look at this." The officer transferred the sensor data to the main screen. "See how they move. There's a pattern, but our computers can't identify it. They're somehow coordinating without using any communication methods we can detect." What the Coalition couldn't understand was that the human ships were using quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication, a technology they had kept secret for decades. On the HSS Swift Arrow, Captain Tadwan smiled as his ship executed a perfect high turn that should have been impossible for a vessel its size. The new inertial dampeners held perfectly, allowing maneuvers that defied conventional physics. "Coalition ship at Mark 7 attempting to flank us," reported his sensor officer. "Predictable," said Captain Tadwan. "Execute pattern Epsilon." 3 human ships that had appeared to be operating independently suddenly converged on the Coalition vessel, firing from angles that left no escape route. The Coalition ship's engines flared as it tried to escape, but the human vessels anticipated every move. On the Coalition flagship, Supreme Commander Grath watched another ship disappear from his tactical display. "We need to retreat," urged his second-in-command. "We've lost over half the fleet already." Commander Grath's jaw tightened. The humans were supposed to be primitives. Their technology was supposed to be generations behind ours. How could our intelligence be so wrong? On the HSS Dauntless, Admiral Park watched as the coalition ships began to break formation, some attempting to flee. "They're beginning to understand," he said quietly. Too late, of course. Lieutenant Minho approached with a datapad. "Admiral, we've intercepted their distress signals. They're calling for reinforcements, but with their main communication relays destroyed, the signals won't reach their home bases." Admiral Park nodded. "Good. Maintain the attack pattern. Leave them no chance to regroup." Across the battlefield, human ships continued their deadly dance. To the coalition forces, it seemed as if each human vessel knew exactly where to be and when. No matter how they tried to evade, human weapons found their targets with unerring accuracy. In his private thoughts, Admiral Park felt no joy in this victory, only grim satisfaction. The coalition had come expecting to find easy prey. Instead, they had discovered that humanity had been watching, learning, and preparing for this day for many years. The lesson would be costly for the coalition, but it would be remembered for generations to come. Major Do-hyun checked his armor seals one final time as his team prepared in the HS Dauntless's launch bay. 20 elite Marines stood ready, their powered combat suits gleaming under the bay lights. Each soldier carried specialized weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. They needed prisoners and intact data systems. "All systems green, sir," reported Lieutenant Jin, his second-in-command. "Team is ready for boarding action." Major Do-hyun nodded and opened a communication channel to the bridge. "Boarding team ready, Admiral," he reported. His voice was calm despite the danger ahead. Breaking into an enemy flagship was never easy, even with the coalition fleet in disarray. On the bridge, Admiral Park received the confirmation and studied the tactical display. The coalition flagship drifted with minimal power, its weapons disabled by the initial strike. Several decks were exposed to space, but the command center remained intact. "Proceed," Admiral Park ordered. "I want their command ship intact." The boarding craft launched from the Dauntless, its stealth systems activating immediately. As it approached the damaged coalition flagship, Major Do-hyun addressed his team. "Remember your training," he said. "We need their command center and data cores secured. Disable resistance, but capture senior officers if possible." The craft attached to the coalition ship's hull near a maintenance airlock. Special cutting tools created an entry point, and the Marines moved in with practiced efficiency. Meanwhile, across the sector, the coalition was attempting to recover from the surprise attack. Emergency signals had reached their reserve fleet stationed in the nearby Deneb system. 30 warships prepared to jump to the rescue of their battered main fleet. "Supreme Commander," the communications officer reported to Graf, "Reserve Fleet Deneb reports ready to jump to our position. Estimated arrival in 7 minutes." For the first time since the battle began, Supreme Commander Graf felt a surge of hope. The reserve fleet might turn the tide. His ship was damaged, but if reinforcements could drive back the humans long enough for repairs, "Tell them to proceed immediately," he ordered. "Full combat deployment upon arrival." What Supreme Commander Graf didn't know was that Captain Hyun-ki of the HSS Sentinel had anticipated this move. For months, her ship had been seeding the likely approach vectors with special minefield generators. These devices remained dormant until activated, completely undetectable by standard sensors. On the bridge of the Sentinel, Captain Hyun-ki received the alert that coalition ships were preparing to jump from Deneb. "Right on schedule," she said with satisfaction. "Activate the minefields. All units in Sector 7, prepare for secondary targets." Throughout the empty space surrounding the battle zone, hundreds of small devices suddenly powered up. Each contained enough energy to disable a capital ship's engines and navigation systems. Inside the coalition flagship, alarms sounded as internal sensors detected the human boarding party. Supreme Commander Graf realized with horror that capture was now a real possibility. "Destroy all data cores," he shouted to his officers. "Authorization Graf Prime 0. Wipe everything." Officers rushed to terminals, entering emergency codes to begin data purges, but they were already too late. Major Do Hyun's Marines had divided into 3 teams, each with specific objectives. Team 1 secured the engine room. Team 2 headed for the main computer core. Team 3, led by Do Hyun himself, fought their way toward the bridge. The coalition soldiers fought bravely, but they were outmatched. The human combat suits provided superior protection and strength, and their tactics showed intimate knowledge of coalition ship layouts. "They know exactly where they're going," gasped a coalition officer as he watched security feeds of the humans moving efficiently through the ship. "How is this possible?" Major Do Hyun's team reached the corridor outside the bridge. 2 heavy security doors stood in their way. "Breach charges," Do Hyun ordered. His demolitions expert moved forward, placing specialized explosives that would disable the doors without causing catastrophic damage to the bridge systems beyond. The charges detonated with controlled force. As the smoke cleared, the Marines surged through the opening. On the bridge, Supreme Commander Grath threw his ceremonial weapon, knowing it was futile. The human Marines entered with weapons raised, quickly subduing the remaining officers. Major Do Hyun approached Grath directly. "Supreme Commander, you are now a prisoner of the Earth Defense Force. Lower your weapon." Grath hesitated, then slowly placed his weapon on the floor. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of extreme stress in his species. "You've made a mistake, human," he said. "Our reserve fleet will be here any moment." Major Do Hyun's helmet comm activated. "Major, Team 2 here. We've secured the data core. They attempted to purge, but our countermeasures stopped it. We have everything." "Excellent," Do Hyun replied. He looked at Grath. "I believe your reinforcements will be having some navigation problems, Commander." As if on cue, reports began coming in from the Deneb Reserve Fleet. Their ships had emerged from FTL jumps directly into active minefields. Engines failed, navigation systems crashed, and ships drifted helplessly, unable to fight or flee. In the Dauntless's command center, Admiral Park received the data package from Major Do Hyun's team. The files were exactly what they had suspected existed: detailed plans for a coalition invasion of Earth and its colonies, disguised as peace negotiations. The plans included population control measures, resource extraction schedules, and labor camp designs specifically for humans. Most damning of all were the communications showing the coalition had never intended to honor any peace agreement. "Transmit everything to all neutral species in the sector," ordered Admiral Park. "Let everyone see what peaceful negotiations meant to the coalition." Lieutenant Minho nodded. "Sending now, sir. I've included translation packages for all major species." Across the sector, diplomatic channels suddenly filled with evidence of the coalition's planned treachery. Species that had remained neutral, fearing coalition power, now saw the true nature of their neighbors' intentions. Back on the captured flagship, Major Do Hyun placed restraints on Supreme Commander Grath. "Why?" he asked the alien commander. "Why pretend to want peace when you planned war all along?" Grath's outer membrane pulsed with anger. "Your species was expanding too quickly. The Council decided you needed to be controlled before you became a true threat." Do Hyun's expression hardened behind his visor. "It seems we already were." 1 month after the battle that changed galactic politics forever, Admiral Jun Park stood in the grand chamber of the newly formed Galactic Council. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating representatives from 27 spacefaring species. The room hummed with quiet conversation in dozens of languages as everyone waited for the session to begin. Admiral Park wore his formal uniform with its simple decorations. Unlike coalition officers who covered themselves with medals and ribbons, humans preferred understated symbols of rank and achievement. Park had refused the grand cape that protocol officers suggested. He wanted to appear as he was, a soldier, not a conqueror. "The Council recognizes Admiral Jun Park of Earth," announced the chairperson, a tall being from the Altarian Federation. The room fell silent as Park approached the central podium. He looked across the assembly. noting the coalition representatives seated in a special section. Their once proud delegation now sat with heads bowed, their elaborate uniforms replaced with simple gray clothing. Humanity didn't want this war, Park stated firmly, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. But we have always understood that peace must be protected with strength. Several representatives nodded in agreement. The evidence recovered from coalition computers had shocked many worlds. Plans for subjugation, resource stripping, and forced labor had been detailed with cold precision. For 50 years, we watched and listened, Park continued. We detected your transmissions, studied your technology, and prepared while you thought us confined to our solar system. We developed in secret not because we wanted war, but because we feared exactly what the coalition planned. The coalition representatives shifted uncomfortably. Their former Supreme Commander Grath was not present. He remained in detention awaiting trial for war crimes. Today marks a new beginning, Park said. Humanity offers its hand in friendship to all peaceful species. We will share our advancements, our resources, and our protection. But we will not tolerate deception or threats. Diplomat Minho stepped forward next, his diplomatic uniform simpler than Park's military attire. Where Park was stern, Minho appeared gentle and approachable, a deliberate contrast that humans had planned carefully. The new protocols are simple, explained Diplomat Minho. Transparency, verified disarmament, and mutual defense. No more secret plans, no more deception. He activated a holographic display showing the proposed treaty. Each member agrees to open borders for verification inspections. Military forces will be limited to defensive capabilities. And most importantly, all species will contribute to a united defense force to protect our shared interests. The assembly buzzed with discussion. Many species had chafed under coalition domination for centuries. The proposal offered freedom and security that many had never known. We will vote tomorrow, the chairperson announced. Take this time to consider humanity's proposal carefully. As the session ended, representatives from a dozen worlds approached Park and Minho, eager to express support. Species that had once feared or dismissed humans now sought their friendship and protection. Later that day, Admiral Park made a final visit to the detention center where former Supreme Commander Grath was held. The fallen coalition leader sat in a simple room with white walls and minimal furnishings. He looked smaller somehow, his gray skin dull without his elaborate uniform. "Why have you come?" Grath asked without looking up. "To gloat over your victory." Park shook his head. "To understand, and perhaps to help you understand us." Grath finally looked at him. "Your species makes no sense. You speak constantly of peace while building weapons that can destroy fleets. You claim to want harmony while preparing for war." "That's exactly why we defeated you," Park replied. "You should have studied us better. Our history is filled with terrible conflicts. We've nearly destroyed ourselves many times. Humans talk about peace because we know war too well. We prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. That's something your kind never understood." Grath blinked his 4 eyes in sequence, a gesture of confusion in his species. "The coalition believed your peaceful overtures indicated weakness. And that was your fatal error," Park said quietly. "You mistook our desire for peace as weakness, when it has always been our greatest strength. We value peace so highly that we will fight fiercely to protect it." Park turned to leave but paused at the door. "Your trial begins next week. The evidence is overwhelming, but you will receive fair treatment. Another concept your coalition never understood." As Park left, Grath sat motionless, finally beginning to understand. His people had studied human technology, human biology, and human settlements, but they had never truly understood human nature. The strange contradiction of a species that created art and music and poetry, yet could fight with unmatched ferocity when threatened. The next day, the Galactic Council voted overwhelmingly to accept the human proposal. Species that had been enemies for generations now stood together under human leadership. A new era had begun. On the observation deck of the HSS Dauntless, Admiral Park and Diplomat Minho watched the stars. "Do you think they understand us now?" Minho asked. Park smiled slightly. "They're beginning to. And that understanding will keep the peace better than any weapon we could design." Below them, Earth shone blue and beautiful, still home to humans, but now the center of something much larger. A galactic community built on mutual respect and the hard-earned wisdom that true peace comes from strength, understanding, and vigilance. The end.